Hello everyone. I welcome you to this episode of The Blends with the Virtual World, the India edition. And a special welcome to all existing members of The Blend and also to the ones who are yet to join the Blend family. The Blends of the Virtual World, the India edition, is a series that celebrates some of India's finest talent from the bar world, from mentors to bartenders to the movers and shakers of the Indian bar industry. I'm here today with Vikram, the founder and CEO of Taliho, India's pioneering drinks training and consulting firm set up 20 years ago. Vikram is also co-founder of 30 Best Bars India, a platform to award and rank the top bars in the country. Apart from being consulting editor of Brews and Spirits, a beverage industry-focused publication, Vikram also writes frequently on drinks and drinking out for a variety of publications like Man's World, Outlook Traveler, Business Standard Weekend, and The Hindu. Co-author of the Taliho Book of Cocktails, Vikram is also a keen quiz master, helping popularize, in particular, pub quizzing across India. I'm going to be talking to him about the prospects and potential for American whiskey in India, and more particularly so, the latest release from Beam Suntory in this segment, which is Jim Beam Black. Jim Beam Black is an extra-aged bourbon that was rated in 2016 by the IWSC as the highest rated bourbon for the year. The extra time in the barrel allows for more natural caramel and char notes to be extracted from the wood, and it's also a tad stronger than the Jim Beam White as it is at 43% ABV. So what are we waiting for? Let's welcome Vikram Achanta. Vikram, so good to see you. How you been?
Pleasure. Yeah,
Pleasure.
I've been good.
Did you come running here today?
I did.
Yeah, you did? Did you leave your sports shoes outside?
Absolutely.
And change to
I had
this?
a quick shower outside.
Good to see you, Vikram.
Pleasure.
Please.
Thank you, Ron. Nice to be here.
We're glad that you could join us. So Vikram, you and the team at Taliho have been around for 2 decades now, and I think Taliho has you've really seen the industry grow, the consumer base grow, and how brands have come about in the past 2 decades. So who do you think sets the trends in India when it comes to bars, drinks, the whole culture around this?
That's an interesting question, Rohan.
Yeah.
And I don't think we can pinpoint any one person or body which kind of sets trends, because the market is such a large and diverse market in India.
Right.
And there are so many different drinks, trends, varieties, cocktails, etc., which all play a role in the drinking universe in India. I'd say probably when it comes to cocktails and cocktail culture, it's there where bartenders and bars in particular have played a pretty strong role in shaping trends or creating trends, especially over the past 2 to 3 years. And consumers are increasingly becoming reliant on their favorite bars and the bartenders behind those bars to follow the suggestions and possibly pick up those cocktails and come back for them even more. So I definitely give credit to bartenders and bars when it comes to, say, cocktails in particular. I also think the consumer himself or herself also plays a strong role in setting trends, because the consumer today in the Indian environment is far more well-traveled.
Absolutely.
And courtesy social media is far more aware of what's happening. So he or she might also want or request a similar kind of experience or spirit or cocktail which they're getting when they travel, as opposed to the Indian market. So hats off to the consumer. I think they're pushing the envelope from a bar perspective and a bartending perspective, which is beneficial. Unfortunately, we're a media dark market, so there is no really popular consumer media which can play a role in terms of setting trends or forming opinions. So that's still in its infancy.
Yeah.
But courtesy social media, I think we're now seeing a small set of independent people who are kind of coming up and building a small community around them, shall I say, and those people are kind of would like to see what those people are drinking or recommending. So that's an interesting development to keep a note of.
In India, we've always had a trend of having a restaurant and a bar together. A place where you walk in and grab a drink, order food. So food and drink normally go hand in hand in such cases. In that context, popularity of a certain type of cuisine can also lead to a spurt in the demand of an alcoholic beverage from that particular country or region. Do you think so? And what's your take on that?
Well, I agree with the general proposition that there is a linkage between cuisine and the beverage popularity from that particular country. I think in the Indian context, however, the most popular international cuisines, if I can call them that, are, say, Chinese cuisine, Chinese food, and Italian food. And we haven't really seen any, say, Asian beverages or Chinese origin beverages, or say even Italian wines, etc., take off from the popularity of those particular food categories, shall I say. Although I would be interested in seeing now with Amaro coming into the country, if they can take advantage of the increase in the popularity of Italian food in India. Yeah. Having said that, American food is quite amorphous in nature. When we talk about bourbon as a category, how do we connect that to American food in particular? It's a kind of a melting pot in some sense.
True.
But Americana generally, America generally has a lot of soft power when it comes to Americana, Hollywood, all of those things, which can play a very strong role, I think, in influencing the bourbon category as such. And the only examples we possibly had of American cuisine or Tex-Mex cuisine, really.
Correct, Tex-Mex. I was about to say.
Yeah. So places like, say, TGIF or Chili's, for example, which are still here and there, not that possibly widespread. So maybe it's better to cherry pick some parts of the menu from existing restaurants which have a strong American association, which could be, say, burgers. A place with a very strong burger menu, for example, that's possibly a nice positioning point for bourbon to make an entry there with bourbon and burgers, an example. I don't know if there's an opportunity for bourbon to play in the desserts category, because again, popular desserts like cheesecake or apple pie have a very strong American connect. And I'm not sure how tangential we could bring in the bourbon association there. But I think overall the theme is, if there is a stronger engagement between bourbon and chefs, that's where the creativity might come into play. And if you as a company, as a brand, make that connect with some of the leading chefs to see how they can imagine things and how it might spark their imagination for doing something more creative with bourbon and cuisine, what kind of tweaks, that could be an interesting conversation to have.
Sure. No, it's very interesting you said creativity, and I think, overall we've seen the ilk of the Indian bartender, and for that matter, even chefs across the country. The levels of creativity that we see today are so enhanced, right? There's so much exposure, I think, people in the F&B industry generally have nowadays. And I think, Vikram, you've also had a ringside view of how the Indian bartending scene has evolved over time. What do you think are the changes that you've observed in a bartender's role over the years, and how do you think you would like to see this evolve in the times to come?
Well, I think companies such as yourselves can take a lot of credit for that, especially for the evolution of the Indian bartender to where they are today. And what we've seen definitely possibly in the last 3 to 5 years is the evolution of a bartender as a professional. So they're honing their craft, really, So they're reading up on their knowledge, they're perfecting their skills, they're getting the technical part of their wizardry and their excellence is all coming into place. The kind of platforms that they've got, the global platforms via competitions, training exposure has been tremendous for them. So they now have global platforms, global exposure, and global networks, which have all helped them kind of grow and flourish. So in my view, the bartender today has progressed definitely to the position of being a very fine craftsman, shall I say.
Yeah.
However, I think a lot of those excellent craftsmen who had also developed the next part of the bartending personality, so shall I say, have now possibly moved on to different roles, say brand ambassadorial roles, for example, or moved outside the country even then.
Right.
Yeah. So what I would love to see is the next generation of Indian bartending talent really coming into their own and taking the place of those of the people who preceded them, shall I say, and developing their own personalities.
Right.
And when you talk about the evolution of the bartender, I think there are two things which I would love to see. And we spoke about Vaibhav Singh earlier at Perch, previous conversation.
Yeah, good friend.
Yeah, and I was speaking to Vaibhav last year about the Indian bartending scene, and he made a very interesting point. He said the bartenders are very good at their craft. Where they're still a little bit lacking is the consumer interface part. So they're possibly too inward focused and focused on the technical aspects of what they're doing and what they're creating.
Correct.
What they would possibly need a little more intuition or insight on is, what does the consumer want? They can make the greatest drink in the world, but is it what the consumer wants? So how do you develop that little bit of bridge between your craft and the consumer tastes and preferences is where the bartender should be moving. Yeah?
Right.
And I think that's all a part of the larger theme really, which is hospitality. Because ultimately you're not working in a microcosm which is just the bar, right? You're working in the realm of hospitality. You have to be a hospitable bartender.
Absolutely.
Towards making your guest feel at home.
Yeah.
And so I'd love to see those two things happen.
Yeah.
More consumer focus and more focus on hospitality.
Yeah. When Nitin was here a couple of weeks back with us, he touched on the same thing as well. And sometimes I think bartenders, or for that matter, people who are skilled in a craft, we get very caught up in trying to showcase what we do, or a technique that we know, or a style of drink that we like, or ingredients we like to play with, and which at times may not be necessary for a consumer, or what a consumer is looking for. And I think the moment that bartenders start understanding that and adopting that it's not always necessary to put the most complicated drink or technique out for a consumer to be able to appreciate a drink. Sometimes a simple drink, yet done with flair, goes such a long way. And I think we've seen great bartenders, like if you've seen Devender in Hong Kong, right? He's a great example of, I think, what an Indian bartender can be. Works at a at a 3-star Michelin restaurant, does simple drinks, yet the whole aspect of hosting someone is what I think being a good bartender or an F&B professional is. So Vikram, last year you co-organized 30 Best Bars India. Why do you think the time was right for doing this now in 2019, after the fact that bars have been here for such a long time? And what factors do you think are currently holding Indian bars back from gaining a more prominent status in India or across the world stage?
Well, Rohan, we set up talliho.com as a bar review platform, and 20 years ago this year. So it's been quite a while. And the reason we set it up back then to review Indian bars was because bars were just taking very baby steps, so to speak, and coming out of the shadow of restaurants. And you had small bars coming up in their own right, which could be actually treated as bars. Yeah. It took them quite a while, I'd say, to evolve and to mature. And in the last 2 to 3 years, rather, of Man's World, and I have been talking about doing something to put Indian bars, really give them a more prominence on a greater platform, to whatever extent we could. And we could really see the bar format changing in the last 2 to 3 years in India. So you had more people coming in at the helm of these bars who came from a bartending background, like Lama at Sidecar or Weber with Perch. So they understood the industry really well, and they understood what it took to make a great bar tick. Or you had people who were professionals, so Rakshay at PCO, or Yash and Sameer at Hunger Inc. in Mumbai with Bombay Canteen and O Pedro. So they were professionals who came from hospitality background, and they could understand, again, what it took to put a great bar team together and a great consumer experience together. So you had multiple formats coming into play, all with different say backgrounds and genesis, and all which were putting the bartender up front, some quality cocktails up front, well-themed interiors, and some kind of a format and narrative in place. Coupled with that was the fact that Indian bars really weren't getting the prominence we felt that they deserved on a nation and possibly even a global stage. Indian bars or even bar personalities. So we felt that this was the appropriate time. The time was absolutely possibly bang on to put in this platform to rank and recognize the top bars in India via a very rigorous methodology, and hopefully see if that led to greater things for some of them. And although we can claim no credit for this as such, but fortunately, as it turned out, Sidecar did make the list of Asia's 50 best bars after being crowned the best bar in India. So that was nice. That was encouraging. In terms of the second part of your question, which is what possibly prevents more Indian bars or Indian bars as such from getting a greater role on the stage, on the Asian, the world stage, I think it still does come back to that point about the narrative or the theme. And I've been traveling through bars in Asia over the last 1 to 2 years, Singapore, Hong Kong, Indonesia, Vietnam, and seeing Thailand even, and seeing how bar culture is evolving across the region. It's been an amazing experience. And to me, the bars which stand out in my mind are those bars which can bring together that narrative in a cohesive whole. So it all works together, their brand, their identity, their personality, the cocktail menu, the experience that they offer the guest, all that works to give me that unique sticking point in my mind as a consumer, and makes me want to go back possibly to those bars again and again. So I think that's something which Indian bars would do well to emulate or look at, to develop those concepts which have a cohesive narration. There are some examples possibly which I can see more in the resto bar space, like say Bombay Canteen or an O Pedro, but not that many that I can think of in the bar space.
Right.
Which is where I think that's the next real step for Indian bars.
Speaking of drinks, I think it's time for us to head to the bar, Vikram.
That's a great idea, Rohan.
Please.
I'm going to make a simple drink for you, Rohan.
All right.
'Cause I think it's a great liquid already, which we have in there, and we don't need to tamper too much with it to really bring it out. And it happens to be a highball.
Oh wow, lovely. I love highballs. They're such a brilliant drink for any time of the year. And I think, for us with Jim Beam, and especially the Jim Beam White, where we lead with the highball program, it's a drink that's done extremely well across, not only in India, but across across different markets. And generally, I think consumers love it, and it's almost become a bartender's handshake, right? People love drinking a highball, bartenders especially. So I'm all for it. Please take it away.
And I think I have a mixer that you'll particularly like also.
Oh.
So I'm going to start with just a simple highball glass already pre-filled with ice. And I'm going to take 60 ml of the Jim Beam Black.
Okay. That's a fairly stiff drink you're making.
I think you can take that, Rohan.
I'm sure I can.
If you can't, I certainly can. And I've made a mixer you'll particularly like, and it's homemade.
All right, nice.
So it's preservative free, and it's a sweet lime cordial.
Oh, lovely. Mosambi.
Mosambi.
Yeah, Mosambi. I love Mosambi.
About 45 ml of this sweet lime cordial.
Okay, and you just squeezed the Mosambi juice and you've cooked it with sugar and citrus?
Absolutely.
All right.
Just gonna add that back in there in the drink. And like a taste of this?
I'd love some.
Yeah. Just tell me what you think of the drink.
Ooh, that's so summer. Yeah, and I think Mosambi is such a beautiful flavor, and for a lot of us growing up,
Right.
I think this was the one citrus fruit you had throughout the year, right? Well, I think for the longest time, a lot of us thought this was an orange because you'd get it throughout the year. Oranges, when I was growing up, you'd only see them during winter, but for the rest of the year, it is Mosambi that you're romanced with. So I love drinks with Mosambi or sweet lime. Yeah.
And I think it's also great because it's a particularly Indian fruit. So it's again possibly something which we can export to the world.
True.
Yeah.
True.
And one last final touch, I'm just going to top it up with some soda.
Okay.
So add a bit of sparkle to it. And what's a drink without a garnish, right?
Absolutely. Now you're going to pull out a bunny out of a hat?
Now I've come prepared with my sweet lime.
Oh, look at you.
There you are.
One more. I love my citrus garnishes.
One more. There you are.
Oh, super.
Got that in there. And so I'll just drop that there.
Ah, that looks nice.
Taliho. That's for you, right?
All right. Yes, please.
There you
Ooh,
are.
that looks nice. Oh. If you got this recipe, you got to make this at home. Very simple. Highballs, I think, are one of the best, very simple drinks that you can create at home. Not necessarily, doesn't take rocket science to create one. And as you can see, Vikram's recipe is particularly very easy. Whether you got Jim Beam Black or Jim Beam White, just a touch of a citrus fruit with a bit of sweetness, soda, and lots of ice. Easy does it.
Thank you, Rohan. So what's the verdict? Do I get the bottle or the glass?
I'll think about it.
And can I have a taste too?
Yes, please, all yours.
I love that.
Yeah. So Vikram, while you are at it, I've been meaning to ask you a couple of questions. I'm going to just put this back, and if you're ready,
Okay.
just to make sure, that in case you're driving back, I want to make sure that you get these answers right. If you don't get them right, we're going to make you stay here, make me a whole lot more drinks.
Okay.
All right?
Okay. Sounds good.
If you weren't being Vikram Achanta or running Taliho, what would you be doing?
I have a bookshop of my own.
Really?
Yeah.
Where?
Selling detective fiction. In Delhi. Yeah.
And
A detective.
any particular place you'd want this bookshop to be in?
Maybe like a small tucked away market, something like the Mulchan market where flavors used to be.
Yeah.
So a
Oh, yeah,
destination.
it's a cute part of town. It's a beautiful part of town. Absolutely.
So I'd like it to be a destination, so people come there specifically to seek out that bookshop and look for a book that they've been looking for a long time.
Okay. And is that your retirement plan?
First I write my book, then I open the bookshop.
You write a lot as well, so I'm sure you definitely should have a bookshop. Your favorite drink at your favorite bar, what would that be?
Well, now it has to be Boulevardia. Since you spoiled me. Yeah. And at Cocktails and Dreams Speakeasy.
Ah, that's a lovely bar. I think it's got all the elements going for it, right? It can almost be a dive bar.
Right.
It's a great speakeasy themed bar. But what I really like about the place is that it's such a vibrant little place tucked away into the basement. Yeah. And I think it's your perfect definition of what a neighborhood bar should be. So I think it's a great choice, Vikram. But are you shifting to that part of town anytime soon?
Maybe if I
from the palace that you have here in Delhi.
If I open a branch of my bookshop, maybe.
Yeah. Oh, in fact, the sister concern for Speakeasy Saika has a bookshop tucked away at the bar, and I think that's a really neat touch to the bar.
Absolutely.
Vikram, you're supposed to sip. You're gulping it down.
I can't help it, Owen. It's so good.
Oh, thank you. So, while you're at it, the third question to you.
You said a couple.
When has a couple ever meant a couple? Not at my bar.
Okay.
You said you come in for a couple of drinks and you leave after 10. Is that one?
Okay, I'll let you have your day. Okay.
The one drink or spirit you think deserves to be back on bar menus across the world?
Across the world or in India?
In India as well.
The one cocktail that I'm partial to, but I don't find enough of is the Pisco Sour. I really like that cocktail, but
it's a yum drink. It's an absolute yum drink. Yeah,
it's a nice drink, and I'd like to see more of that on Indian cocktail menus.
I think bars here have begun taking on to the Pisco as a drink, and of course the Pisco Sour is slowly getting popular. So I think you're in luck. I think that should happen sometime soon.
Okay, let's see.
Yeah. And if you were drinking a Pisco Sour, what's the one part of the world or one city in the world that you'd like to retire to, along with that bookshop of yours?
You're just connecting all the dots, right?
Clearly, you're giving me all the reason to.
And I'm hosting a pub quiz there too.
You are?
I absolutely am. Yeah.
Never going to show up for that one.
And I'm there next week, Rohan.
Where?
Just rub it in a little more.
Really?
Yeah.
Please, I don't want to know this.
Goa.
Where are you going to be?
Goa.
Goa?
Yeah. Goa it is. Yeah.
I hate you. I absolutely hate you at this point. Last one. And if I stump you on this one, I consider my job done. You're a quizzer, and especially in the Indian context. Siddhartha Basu or Derek O'Brien? Your favorite quiz master?
Babu, no doubt. Siddhartha Basu.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I think I have a lot of childhood memories seeing both of them grow up, being quiz masters while I was growing up. But yeah, I know why you say Siddhartha Basu. Fun, absolute fun quiz master. Yeah. Vikram, I know you're at the end of your drink, and I certainly need one. I think I've worked hard enough today. So I'm going to fix a drink for myself before I step out of the bar. But thank you so much. This has been an absolute bolo of a session. Thank you for coming in. Love the chat. And I also wanted to say that thank you for all that you've done for the industry and for the past 2 decades. I think there's so much that has happened and I've seen happening, and I think I've been fortunate enough to be a part of it thanks to you. We really have, or at least beginning to come of age as an industry here in India, and you've played a big role in this. And for all the support that we've always received from you and the team at Talio for the blend, thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure hosting you, Vikram.
Thank you, Rohan.
Pleasure is all ours. Thank you for being, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Absolutely. I'm going to leave that last swig for you. Thank you so much.
I'll keep that for myself. You have a good one. Thank you everyone for joining in for this episode of the Blends of the Virtual World, the India edition. I'm sure you will find this useful and inspiring. Over the next few weeks, I really look forward to seeing you join in for all our episodes. Next week's guest is someone who is recognized as one of India's top female bartenders. And with 2 award-winning bars under her belt, she is really leading the charge for creating a diverse and inclusive industry in India. Her elegance and speed behind the bar will put the skills of many of you to the test. Until then, don't forget to check out and register at www.theblend.world for everything that you ever wanted to know about our craft. I'll see you next week.